All right, so today we're going to discuss some decimals. So last time we saw fractions, mixed numbers, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Today we're going to look at decimals and different operations with decimals. So basically, we'll look at different things. We're going to see how to write decimals as fractions, see how to add and subtract decimals, multiply and divide them. Also, we're going to see how to write fractions as decimals. So last time we did mixed numbers. We can also turn the mixed numbers into decimals. Then we're going to look at some percents briefly and probably solve some problems involving decimals. So let's see where the notion of decimals, where the notion comes from. So basically, so when you have a number like this, 3, for example, 3, 1, 2, decimal point, then 4, 6, and 8. So that's a decimal number. This is a decimal point. It separates the number into two sections. We have the whole part and the decimal part. So this is the whole, and this is the decimal part of the number. Basically, the whole part is made of the ones, the second one is the tens, we have the hundreds, and so on. That's the whole part. After the hundreds, we have the thousands, the 10,000s, the 100,000, the millions, and so on. The other part, the decimal part, starts with the what we call the tenths, with a th at the end. Tenths, THS. Okay. For the whole part, this is the tens, as in 10, 20, 30, 40, but this is the tenths. 1/10. Okay, 1/10 basically means 1 out of 10. Because of this th, it's 1/10, that means 1 out of 10. Whatever it is, you have 10 things, 10 items, or something you divide into 10 pieces and you take one of them. That's what 1/10 is. If this is 1/10, or this is the tenths, what is the next one in the decimal? What is the next placement value?
1/10.
This was the tenths. What's after the tenth?
1/10.
Would be 100th. This is 1 out of 10. The next placement value is 100th. If you can get closer to the microphone, I can barely hear you.
Sorry.
Okay, a little better now. So 100th. Okay, this is the hundredths, not the hundreds, just 100 here with S. This is hundredths. That means 1 out of 100. So 100th. Is 1 out of 100. And what do you think the next one is? So tenths, hundredths. What about this one?
100.
If we have 1 out of 10, 1 out of 100, the next one would be 1 out of?
1 out of 1?
No, it would be 1 out of 1,000. As we go, okay, this denominator increases.
It gets higher, okay.
That's right, it gets smaller and smaller. So 1,000. 1,000. Or the thousands with a th again. See here? That's how you tell whether it's a decimal part or a whole part. So the whole part doesn't have th. It only have 1 with an s, tens with an s, hundreds with an s. But this is the 10,000. So again, 1,000 would be 1 out of 1,000. That's basically how we name each placement value or each place value in a decimal number. So there's always a decimal point. To the left of the decimal point, we have the whole part. The decimal part is on the right. Remember the decimals. So the decimal part starts with a tenths. There is no ones. Tenths. Okay, 1 out of. But the whole part, the ones, the tens, the hundreds, and so on. Okay, now we're going to see how to write decimals as fractions. So as we just saw, so let's say, let's call this number 1, definition. Number 2 would be decimals into fractions. Decimals into fractions. Let's start with a small decimal here. So this one, for example, so we have 1 in the tenths. So we say 1/10. So this fraction is 0.1, or more accurately in decimal form, we say 1/10, because we have 1 in the tenths placement. And
okay.
So 1/10 again as a fraction, what is it? 1/10 means
1 out of 10.
Exactly, so 1 out of 10. That's basically how you turn a decimal into a fraction. What about this one? Let's first read it and then write it as a fraction. How do you read this in this form? How many of what do you have?
3 tenths.
3/10, that's right. We have the tenths is here, we have 3 here. So we're gonna say 3/10 as a fraction, that would be
3 out of 10.
3 out of 10. That's how simple it is to turn a decimal into a fraction. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, so we're talking about decimals today. So 1/10, 3/10. What about this one? Let's first read it. The way you read it in decimal form, it gives you an idea on how the fraction is going to look like. So let's read this in decimal form. What is this?
110.
It's one what? Which one of these?
100.
100th. That's right. 100th, 100th, or 1 out of 100, because we have 1 in the 100th position. So we say 100th or 1 out of 100. What if you have a different number here? Let's say this. What is that? We have 13 of what?
Hundredths.
That's right, 13 hundredths, because we have 13, the highest decimal here is 3. So 13 hundredth, in other words, we have 2 digits, so that's a hundredth. So 13 hundredth as a fraction, that would be?
13 over 100.
That's right, 13 out of 100, or 13 hundredths, with like this, with a th. And the same way works for the thousands. So let's say 0.008. What is this as a fraction?
8 thousandths.
That's right, 8 thousandths. Tens, the hundreds, and the third one is the thousands, so 8 thousandths. Like this. One more, let's say 0.025. How do we read this decimal?
25,000.
Very good, 25,000. As you can see, 1, 2, 3. So the highest decimal is the thousands, so 25,000. By the way, these can be reduced, these fractions can be reduced. For example, here we can at least reduce by 2. That will be 4 over 500. We can reduce that by 2 again. It will be, we divide both by 2, it will be 2 out of 2. This is reduced to the lowest terms. Same thing here. We can divide, if you can't see that we can divide by 25 right away, it's actually possible to divide by 25. You can at least divide by 5. So you can say 25 by 5 is 5. What's 100 by 1,000 by 5? 1,000 by 5 would be 200.
200.
That's right. And then again, divided by another 5. 5 by 5 would be 1. 200 by 5 is, what's 200 divided by 5? Would be?
Would be 40.
40.
That's right. So this is much better than this. So the question may say, write this decimal in fraction form and then reduce it to the lowest terms. This is what that means, reduce it or simplify it. So this is a better answer. So that's basically how you turn decimals into fractions. You may also have, let's say, 3.4. That's a decimal. How do you turn that decimal into a fraction? Basically, we're going to move the decimal to the right once. In this case, we're going to move it once. So this turns into what? 34. And since we moved the decimal only once, so we're going to put this over 10. So 3.4 is the same as 34 over 10. Simply get rid of the decimal. If you move it once, you put it over 10. If you move the decimal twice, you put it over 100 and so on. And then you can also try to reduce this. This is 17 over 5. What about this one? This is a decimal. We want to turn this into a fraction. How many times do you need to move the decimal here to get rid of it?
You'll move it 2 times to the right.
Exactly. So 25 over 34. And if you move it twice, the denominator will be, what would the denominator be here? Since we moved twice.
It'll be in the hundreds place.
That's right, it will be 100. Here we moved once, that's why I have 10. Here we moved twice, so we put 100. And again, you can try to reduce this. But that's pretty much how you turn any decimal into fraction. Just move the decimal. See here, we moved the decimal once. That's why we have 10. We moved it once, 10. We moved it 3 times here. It became 8. And since we moved 3 times, we put 1,000. So it's very simple. Now let's see how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide fractions. Okay, operations with fractions. So number 3, we're going to see addition, subtraction, multiplication, and also division of fractions. Let's start with addition first. That's the easiest one, I believe. Addition. So when you have 2 decimals, let's say I want to add 2.51. You want to add it to, let's say, 4 let's say 3. So when you add them, make sure you align the decimals. When you set up the numbers, when you set up this, the addition, for example, 2.51, you write the first number, so the decimal point is here. You want to bring the other decimal right below the first decimal, and then put the numbers, fill in the numbers you have. You can even add, let's say, add the number here, just for the sake of showing the alignment here. So we say, put the decimal first, they have to be aligned. Then we have 4 here, and 1. The first number doesn't have the tens, only has the ones, but you can always fill the gaps with empty spaces with zeros. That way you have all the columns filled and everything is nicely aligned and easy to see. For this one, so we have 14.3, so we have 3 here. This number does not have, so we have the tens, we don't have the hundreds, so we can put 0 there, so that way it's easy to add. Okay, very important to align the decimal when you add and subtract, but you don't need to do that when you multiply and divide, as we're going to see later. So then you could basically just add vertically, just like you do with the whole numbers or integers. So we have 1, 8, bring the decimal down, you have 6 here, and 1. And that's the final answer. Sometimes you may have to carry something if this comes out to be more than 10, a 10 or more. So you put the ones here and you carry to the next one. Let's do another example. So say 8.001 plus, let's say 5 and 2 and 9. Let's give just those two. So same thing, so we have two numbers. I'm gonna write the first one. Align the decimal, so bring the first decimal below the other one. This is 8. So here we have 5 to the left. Nothing here, so we can put a 0. For this one we have 6, we have 2. We don't have the thousand. This one has a thousand, this one doesn't, so we're gonna put a 0. And again, just add vertically. So we have 1, 2 here, 6. Here we have a little problem. We have 8 plus 3, that's 13. It has 2 digits, so what do you do?
You're gonna put the 3, and then you're gonna add 1 to the top of the other problem.
That's right. That's right. So we'll write down the ones. I'm going to carry the 10s to the next column. So for this one, I'm going to write the 3 down. And the 1 here goes to the next column, will be combined with the rest. So 1 and 0, that's 2. And that's it. That's the final answer to that one. So pretty simple, no big deal. Addition is quite similar. I mean, subtraction is quite similar, but there's a little problem. Sometimes we can't subtract. That's when you need to borrow. Let's do a couple of examples. Let's start with a simple one first. So if we have, say, x plus 4 and 1, we want to subtract from this maybe 2.3. So addition and subtraction again, we have to align. So we're going to write the first one, 6.41. Bring the other one, make sure the decimals are aligned, 2 under the 2, the ones together, the 10s, and so on. We have 3 here, but this doesn't have any digit here. It doesn't have the hundredths, but this one does have hundredths, so we need to fill up that gap with a 0. Then you start your subtraction. So we're going to subtract vertically. So 1, take away 0, that's 1. 4, take away 3, that's 1. 6, take away 2, that's 4. So no problem. Everything was okay. It was easy. But now we're going to see what happens if, for example, if this was, let's say, 8. Instead of 3, we have 8 here. Then we're going to run into a problem. 4, take away 8. We can't do that. So let's see how to deal with that in another example. So let's say 14, take away 2.5. 14.25, take away, let's say, maybe 7.0 and 8. Okay, we're going to set up the subtraction. Start with the first number. Again, align the decimal, should be right here. Then you write your number, so you have 7 here, nothing here, but 0. On the other side, we have 0. We have 8. And you start subtracting. So 5, take away 8. We can't do that. So what do you think we do?
You're gonna borrow from the 2, and
Exactly.
then the
So
5
borrow
will
from
turn
the 2.
Yeah, and then 5 will be 15 minus 8.
Exactly. So 5, take away 8, not possible. So we're going to have to borrow 1 from here. You take away 1 from here, it turns into a 1. And the one we borrowed, we're going to put it right here next to the 5, and then we consider this 15. Now we're going to do 15. Take away 8, which is 7. Right? Now here we have only 1 left after we borrowed this one, so it's going to be 1. Take away 0, which is fine. We can put 1 minus. Then we have to do 4 take away 7. Same problem. We can't subtract 7.
You borrow from the 1.
That's right. We're going to borrow from 1, which turns into
0.
0. And the one we borrowed would go next to the 4, and this would turn into 14. Now we're going to do 14, take away 7, which is, of course,
7.
7.
That's right. And here, nothing left. 0, take away 0, that's 0. Yeah, see, this calculation may sound pretty easy. It is pretty easy, but until you get a hang of it, until you practice it really well and you get confident with it. So don't assume you know it until you really try it and you do this. You have to do this fast, because during the exams and quizzes, we're not allowed to use calculators. So all this math, all this calculation has to be done on the side, and you have to do it quickly. So you don't want to waste time on these to answer questions. So get used to this. A lot of them in the homework. They may seem easy again, but just keep trying them. And the more you do it, the better, the more confident and the faster you will be doing it. That's addition and subtraction. Let's look at multiplication. So multiplication is not too bad itself. So let's say you have 2.15 and you want to multiply that by 3. 3 point, let's say, maybe 1. Okay, the key here is with division, with multiplication, don't worry about the decimals. Don't worry about the alignment. Just ignore them. So ignore as if you didn't have any decimals. If you had only whole numbers, you would write it this way. Just write the numbers, push them as far as possible to the right. Okay, you push the numbers to the right, not even worrying about the decimal. So the decimal would be here, and also would be here. So we don't have to align them when you multiply. We do that only for addition and subtraction. So you can completely ignore them in the beginning, just push the numbers to the right. And then once you've done multiplying, that's when we place the decimal point. So ignore them here. So let's multiply. So we're going to start with this one. We're going to multiply it by all these. So 1 times 5, 1 times 1, 1 times 2. Then we go to the second one and multiply it by all these 3. So 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 1, 1. 1 times 2, 2. We finished with this digit. We're going to move to the next one and repeat the same thing. So we're going to times 3 by all these 3 digits. But there's one thing you need to do here. Once you move from one digit to the other for the first time, you have to leave a space here or 0. So we're done with this. This is the first move. We move to the next digit. We put 1, 0. If you move for the second time, let's say you did this, and you have another digit here. And the second time you start a new line, you have to move 3 twice and so on. So every time you move, you add another 0. But for the first time, so we moved for the first time, so we're going to put 0 here. Then you start your multiplication. 3 times 5, that's 15. Okay, you want to write down the ones and carry the 10s to the next column, to the next digit. So we times these two, we put 5 here. This one will go to the next column right over here. Now we're going to do 3 times 1 and add this to that. 3 times 1, that's 3, plus 1, that's 4. Finally, 3 times 2, that's 6 by itself. Okay, we're done. We don't have any more digits. If you have another digit here, again, for example, let's say you have another 1 here. Now, when you start a new line, this time we have to put 2 zeros because that's the second time you move. You moved the first time, we put 1 0. When you move the second time, this time we have to leave 2 zeros and then you multiply. 1 times 5 here, 1 times 2, 1 times 1, 1 times 2. In this case, we don't have the 1, so let's remove that. We times both of these. What do you do now?
Add it.
That's right, we're going to add. So after you multiply all these digits by all these digits, you may have more than 2 lines here, or 3 or 4, depending on how many digits you have here and here. So now we're just going to add vertically. So we're going to add these 2, that's 5, 6, another 6, and also 6. Notice that we didn't do anything yet with the decimals. Now, after we add, that's when you place it. Where do you think the decimal goes in this number?
Six and six
I'm sorry, you're cutting off.
between.
Between?
Sorry. Does it go between 66 and 65?
It will be,
You understand?
okay, how many digits, how many numbers do you count from the right to the left to place a decimal? Since we have two digits,
Two.
I have two digits here, that's 2, plus another one, that's 3. So we're going to count 3 numbers, 3 digits
Okay.
on the right, and initially the decimal is invisible here, so we're going to move it 3 times, 1, 2, and 3. Or you can count, since we have 2 digits, you count all the digits you have after the decimal. Here we have 2, here we have 1, that's 3. So we have to count 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3, and place the decimal. Okay, so don't worry about the decimal at the beginning. Don't worry about aligning it. We don't need it until multiplying. Until after we multiply, that's when we need to place the decimal. Okay, so let's see if we can do another one. Let's say 2.1. Let's times this by 3 point maybe 14, like this. So we're gonna write the first decimal. First, you don't have to align them again. The second one, so it'll be 4 here, 1, 1, 4. Okay, again, no need to worry about aligning the decimals when you multiply. Just make sure you push the numbers to the right as far as possible. Then you start multiplying. So this time, how many lines of multiplications are we gonna have?
3.
3, that's right. We have to multiply all these 3, 1, 2, 3. Each one of these will be multiplied by these. So we're gonna do 4 times 1. It's 4. Actually put it a little closer here. 4 times 2, that's 8. We're done with this one. So the first move, how many zeros we do here?
1.
Just 1 0. And again, gonna times these. 1 times 1. 1 times 2. There's 1. So now we're done with the 1. We have another digit. So this is the second time we move. So how many zeros do we leave now?
2.
2 zeros. So
Wait,
1 and 2.
wouldn't it 1 times 2 be 2?
Yeah, because for the first time when you moved from 4 to 1, we only put 1 0. But this is the second time. So this is the second time we move, this time from 1 to 3. So put 2 zeros first, then start multiplying. Okay?
Yeah, I meant for like the second line because we have 110. Wouldn't it be
This
like
came, yeah, this came from here. So first, when we finished with the 4, right? We moved to the 1. Immediately put a 0 there, okay? Immediately before you start multiplying. Oh, actually, yeah, you're right. It may be, so 1 times 1
Yeah.
is
1
1.
to 1 is 2.
This needs to be 2, sorry.
yeah.
This needs to be 2. And we moved to the third digit. So the second time we move, we have to put 2 zeros, then we multiply. 3 and 1, that's 3. 3 and 2, that's 6. Now we're going to add all these lines together. So we have 4, we have 9, 5, and 6. Where do you place the decimal here? Between what numbers?
Between the 6 and the 5.
Exactly, here, right here, because we have 3 digits after the decimal. We have 1 here, 2, and 3. So we're going to count 3 numbers from the end. So we're going to count 1, 2, and put it after the third one. Or you can think of the invisible decimal, so you move it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's the multiplication. Of course, you need to know your multiplication table. So it's done almost similar to the multiplying whole numbers. Only the difference is that you have to place the decimal after you add. That's the multiplication. Let's look at division. So division of decimals, let's say you have 1.5. You want to divide that by 0.3. Can you see this? Can you see what the answer is? Can you tell what the answer is for this one if you look at it in a few seconds? So it may seem difficult now, but there's a trick actually. You can do this in literally in a second or two, even though it has decimals. So before you divide fractions, first you want to get rid of the decimals of those fractions. Just move them to the right. Same number of times in both numbers. Once you move them both, so this turns into 15, and this turns into?
I see it now.
Into just 3. And of course, 15 by 3 is? 15 divided by 3 is, of course?
5.
Okay, so think about this trick whenever you divide decimals. It doesn't work every time. Sometimes you still have to do the division after you move the decimal, but if you're lucky to get some even numbers or some divisions like these, you can do this quickly. So just move the decimals to the right, same number of times. Here's another one. Let's say 1.4. Again, you should be able to do this in seconds. So what is 1.4 divided by 0.2? The answer is?
7.
That's right, 7. Simply by moving this, you think of it as 14, move this, that's a 2, you divide, you get your number right away. 2 point, let's say 0 or 2.1. We're going to divide this by 0. Let's say 0.3. We're going to try to do the same thing. So first we need to get rid of the decimal. How many times do you need to move the decimal here?
1.
1. And this one needs to be moved?
Twice.
Twice. So we can't move this one once and move this one twice. We will change the ratio on the division. You have to move them the same number of times. So if this moves twice, we have to move this one twice, but we only have one digit. What do you need to do here in order to be able to move twice?
Add a 0. Add a 0.
That's right, very good. So add a 0 here. Now we can move this twice. Move this twice. Let's see what we get. 210 divided by, this turns into, if you move this twice, it turns into 3. Okay, now it's probably a bit easier. What's 210 by 3? Or you can just divide 21 by 3 and add 0 to it.
So it'll be 70?
Exactly, 70. Okay, so these are some tricks you can use. Do this faster without a calculator. That's basically how you do the division of any fraction, but it's not always this convenient. Sometimes you may end up, let's say, with 210 divided by 4. For example, if you have 4 here, it will be 4. You probably won't be able to see the answer right away. You won't be a whole number. You may still have to do the division. That's what we're gonna do next. Let's see an example of that. Let's say, just some random example, 33.4. Let's say divide, I don't know, maybe 0. Let's say 1.2. Okay, first we're gonna move the decimal. This turns into 34 by, divide by what?
12.
12, that's right. So it's not as easy to see. We still have to find out. So we started with decimals. We need to get an answer as a decimal. So that's when we need to do the actual division. So basically, we're going to divide 34 by 12. So the first number in the division, or if it's a fraction, the top number or the first number always goes inside, like this, and the other one outside. So you say 12 into 34. How many times does 12 go into 34? So you can always do the additions on the side. You can say 12 on 12. That's 24. Can you add another 12?
No.
No, if you add another 12, it would be more than that. If you add another 12, it will be 36. So 2 12s, if you add another one, it would be 36. And this is more than we need, so we can't add the third one. So only twice. So we're going to put 2 here, and you multiply these two. 2 times 12 is 24. And what do you do now? What do you do with these two?
34 plus 24?
Not subtract, not add, but subtract.
Oh.
Okay.
Subtract.
But division,
Oh, okay.
because, yeah, so it goes twice. 24 goes twice into the 34, 12 into 24 twice, into 34 twice, and see what's left. So we have 0 and 1. That's a remainder. But since we're dealing with decimals, we have to continue on to turn those remainders into some decimals. So you say 12 doesn't go into 10. And we don't have any numbers to drop from here.
Add a 0
Add a 0 next to?
to the 10.
That's right. So since 12 doesn't go into 10, so 10 is not big enough, we're going to add a 0 here. Now we can fit 12 into 100. How many times is that? So probably less than, let's say, definitely not 10 times, because 10 times would be 120. What about 11 times? Will still be more, right? Let's
12 could go into 100 8 times.
8 times. Okay, let's try that. So we're going to do 12 times 8. Try 8 times and see if we can get closer to this or over it. So 8 times 2, that's 16. Going to put 6, carry 1. 8 times 1 is 8 and 9. So that's pretty close. That's very good. We can't add another 12. If you add another 12 to this, it will be over 100. So that was a good guess. If you get over 100 here, then maybe remove 1, take 1 out of this, and keep going until you get the exact, well, the closest value to this without going over it. Or you can always do the additions. If you can do it probably the easy way. Keep adding 12s multiple times until you get close to this. So 8 times. But if you add 0, the moment you add 0 to this, that we didn't bring from here, the 0 was not part of the number, what do you need to do at the same time? We need to do something else here. Especially here, what do you need to do here once we added that 0 here? So the moment you add a 0 here to make the number bigger, you have to immediately put a decimal point here. Unless the 0 came from the number. If it was part of the number and you dropped it, you don't put a decimal point. Okay, so now 12 into 100, we said 8 times. 8 times 12, we did it here, that's 96. Then again, subtract. 100 take away 96 is 4. That's one digit. You could keep going as much as you need, depending on how many digits you need. Let's get at least a second one. So whenever you do this, try to get at least 2 digits here, unless the question says get 3 or 4 or 5. So now we're going to do 12 into 4. Does 12 go into 4? It doesn't.
Yes, 3 times.
No, the other way. 12 into 4, not 4 into 4.
Oh, yeah. No, it doesn't go into 4.
12 into 4, 0 times. So we're going to add a 0 here. So we don't have to put the decimal again. We only put it the first time. Okay, so 12 into 40, how many times?
It'll go in 3 times.
That's right. That's 36, right? 3 times 12 is 36. And again, looks like the remainder again will be 4. This is a non-ending, so it's going to be 3, 3, 3, because every time you will have a remainder of 4. If you add 0 to it, 12 into 40 will be 3 times and so on. But try to get at least 2 digits when you divide. So the answer here, we can say 2.83. So 2.83. So that's how you basically divide. And that's how you can turn also fractions into decimals. If you have a fraction, for example, 34 over 12, you do the same way. That's how you turn a fraction into a decimal. Okay, so let's do one more example. So let's see how to turn fractions into decimals. Similar to this. Fractions into decimals. Let's say you have, I don't know, 8 over 3. That's an improper fraction. We can write this as a mixed number or as a decimal. Since we're talking about decimals, the question may say, write this as a decimal. Very similar to what we did. So we're going to divide 8 by 3. 3 doesn't go into 8 evenly, so we're going to have to do the division manually. So the top number, or the first number of the division, always goes inside the division symbol here. Then you divide. So you say 3 into 8. How many times does 3 go into 8?
2 times.
Right, twice. We say 2 times 3, that's 6. Then again, we subtract 6, take away 8, that's 2. Now we have a remainder of 2, but we're going to continue. We can't stop. We're going to get some digits. Does 3 go into 2? 3 doesn't go into 2. So what do?
You would add a 0.
That's right. We're going to try to make this bigger. But at the same time, what do you do here?
Put the decimal point down?
Say that again? Sorry?
You put the decimal point?
Exactly. So the first time you add a 0, you have to put a decimal point. Again, unless that 0 came from here. If the 0 was part of the number, you don't put a decimal. All right, so 3 into 20, how many times is that? That's?
6 times. That will give you 18.
That's right, 6 times 3, that's 18. What's the remainder now? 2, right? Then again, it looks like it's going to be the same digit. So if you add 0 again here, 3 into 20, 6 times, and it's going to keep going like that. So 6, 6, 6, it's a non-ending decimal. So 8 over 3 is basically 2 points. You can say 66, or you can round it. So you look at this digit, since this 6 is more than 5, we can round it to 6, 7. We're going to talk about rounding decimals another time in detail. So you need 2 digits. We take those, but we look at the third digit. If it's 5 or more, we add 1 to this. If this was less than 5, let's say we have 2 or 3 here, or 1, then we won't add a 1 next to the 6, So for now, that's the answer to that. Now let's see what happens if you have 2 over 5. What is 2 over 5 as a decimal? We don't know, so the only way to find out is to do the division. Again, we're going to do the division. So the 5 goes here. I mean, the top of the fraction, the numerator, always goes inside. So 2 goes here, 5 goes here. Then you start your division. Be careful here. So 2, again, even if it's smaller, just write it inside. And then you do 5 into 2. Does 5 go into 2?
No.
It's not. So in other words, how many times does 5 go into 2? That's 0 times, right? So we have
Yes.
0. Now, what do we do to make this bigger? We're going to add.
You add a 0 to the 2.
That's right. But at the same time, we add 0. We're going to add
the decimal point.
Decimal point. So 5 into 2, 0 times. You're going to write that 0. Make this one bigger. At the same time, add the decimal point. 5 into 20, how many times?
4.
4, that's right. 4 times 5, that's 20. And the division is done. There's no remainder, so that's the answer, 0.4. There's an even division, end in division. These didn't end, but this one ends. If it doesn't end, then you continue on just like we did earlier. One last thing here I wanted to mention, percent decimal. So percent. Now we're going to see how to turn percents into decimals and the other way around. Okay, we're going to see how to turn percents into decimals or the other way around. It's very simple. When you have, for example, 25%, that means what? That means 25 out of
100.
25 out of 100. That's right. And what is this as a decimal? What is 25 hundredths? Again, as we saw earlier, it's 0.25, right?
Yes.
25 hundredths. And what if you have, let's say, a decimal here, 0.17? We want to go back, turn this into, this is 1700. What is 1700 as a fraction? 17 over?
100.
That's right. And what is this as a percent? 17 out of 100 means?
17%.
Exactly. Exact. So that's how easy it is to go back and forth between percents, fractions, and decimals. Okay, let's take a quick, another quick example. Let's say 0. Let's say 6%. What is 6% as a fraction? 6 out of
10? 100, sorry.
100. That's right. So this is basically 6/100ths, right? 6/100ths. What is 6/100ths as a decimal?
6.06.
2.06. Very good. That's it. Okay. So what if you have 0.03 here? What is this as a fraction? Will be
3 over 100.
3 over 100. And as a percent will be
3%.
exactly. So if you have one, you can go to the other. Okay. Between, again, percents, fractions, and decimals.